Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better, and I'm so happy to introduce our guest today. They knew success isn't always what it seems to be from the outside. At a young age, they found success. They were living in one of the most beautiful places on earth, and from the outside, everything looked perfect. But something was always missing. Surrounded by the material success with everything in place by normal standards, he found himself dissatisfied and nothing seemed to fill the emptiness he found inside himself. No matter how much money our guest made or how successful he was that feeling of being whole was never filled. Over the course of time, this feeling only got worse, never better. It was almost 30 years ago that he was so miserable that he walked out the door to change his life, and he never looked back. Starting on his spiritual transformation path, his life was literally out of control, dysfunctional, completely controlled his life, and it was causing him to make decisions based on who he really wasn't. Like he was walking completely blindfolded. Our guest has cracked the code, though, with nearly 30 years of research, investigation, and experimentation. He found the answers that allow anyone to live the life that they want with passion, purpose, and prosperity. It's a foolproof plan to success, and I'm happy to have the founder of True Life Purpose Now, Bill Heinrich. Bill, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Phil. It's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm very excited. This is something I found my passion in podcasting, so I know what it's like to find that passion, and it just turns on fire, and it creates your purpose to help other people, and obviously prosperity comes with that when you're helping others. But I want to talk to you about you. First of all, thank you for being on the show. We got in that. I'm just excited because I wanted to know, like, you had the outward signs of success, as I read it in your bio, but you said you were never filled. Like, how did you realize that you needed to go look more internal than the external?
Well, there was, so many things happened. I've owned my own businesses for 50 years now. I owned an office products business that I grew really rapidly. This was back in the 70s. I mean, when I bought it, I was 25, and I had a $100,000 credit line at the bank, and all I had to do was call them. I'd call John at the bank and say, "Hey, would you put 20,000 in my account?" "Sure, Bill, no problem." That was it, right? I mean, it was like I was a tremendous success, and then sold that business. And what happened is ran into different challenges, situations, things didn't work out. I had nothing to fall on. There was nothing inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
I was always in the game of survival. So it was just miserable. I'd sabotage myself. I had low self-esteem, couldn't keep stuff. I mean, it's the same thing really everybody goes through. But what I've come to learn now, Phil, is I learned a lot of things. I think some of where the show's going to go is going to surprise you, because it's going to take some twists and turns here. One thing I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, and every person who wants to be in business or is an entrepreneur, okay, hear this. There are 38 different life lesson paths. We each have life lessons. No matter what you do in life, whether you're working for someone or you're going to leave and go work for an entrepreneur, this is all about learning your lessons. That's what it's really about, okay? Keep that in mind, because that's where all of your challenges come. Those are the thoughts and things holding you back from doing it right now are part of your life lessons, because you're here to learn things, and you have blind spots, and you were brought into a world of survival where everything's in the physical, and you have to work, and you need to eat, food, water, shelter, and get more and do more and work harder. But the truth of the matter is, there's a much better way to live than that. And it's when you get more connected to your energy and your passion. So for me, I just couldn't take the misery anymore. I mean, it was really, and something snapped. It was like 9:30 at night, and this voice in my head, just like, "Hey, man, this is like," so I don't know what it was, came and spoke to me and said, "Hey, this isn't you. You need to like go find out what the hell's going on." And I was in a relationship, and I literally, I sat for a little while and was with it. And I said, "I do." And I went to this woman I was in a relationship with, and I said, "I'm so miserable. I've got to go find out. I got to go find the reason why." She thought,
Oh, that poor lady.
she thought I was blaming her, but I wasn't. This was total responsibility on my part. I never said, "Hey, you're causing this misery." I just said, "Hey, I'm miserable. I've got to go find out the reason why." And I walked out. I literally never came back and changed everything but my name. And during all this time, I've always had my own business. I have my own now. I have a coaching business. Uh, but the things I've learned, the way business is done now is like, from the way I see it and the way you want to live life with your purpose, is totally different. It's just totally different than, it isn't a game of survival. It's a game of energy. It's a game of passion. It's a game of serving others. It's a game of allow it to happen. You don't have to force it to happen. I mean, for me, my path was, I was just a rebel all through school and everything. And when I finally got out of school, an insurance company wanted to hire me to sell insurance, but I was going to have to put in so much time to learn it. I just went and learned how to sell instead. I said, let me just see if I like selling it. And I went and tried that. And I was selling office equipment. And then I saw this little business was for sale about 50 miles from where I lived. I went and talked my way into it. But it was more about survival, and it was also about getting my acknowledgement, having it out in front of me, Phil, my accomplishments being able to be seen, right?
Mhm.
That's how I got my love. That was a big piece of it. I was very successful, especially at a really young age. It created a bit of a problem. There weren't many people I could hang around with, right? Because just people, I was in a smaller town, and people knew who we were, knew I was successful. People my age didn't want to be around me. But anyway, what other questions do you have?
I I want to touch on the life path lessons. I want to touch on what when that voice said, I don't know where to start. So let's do with the voice, because we're gonna go in your journey. We're gonna start with that voice that said, "Hey, this is not you. You're not happy," and you scared this poor woman, making her think that she was the issue for your unhappiness. By the way, just as a side question, did you relate to her that she was not the issue?
I didn't have the capacity for that type of clarity at that moment, at that time.
But like, since you've gotten the clarity, is she still out there thinking that like she was the reason why poor Bill with Heinrich was miserable for his?
Well, I know one thing that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, that has nothing to do with me.
Okay.
Nothing whatsoever. If she is, it has to do with the life lessons she's here to learn.
Okay.
I don't owe her an apology. That's the way people live in the physical. It's like you did them wrong. You can't do anybody wrong, because everything in the physical is an illusion. It's your mind, your past is projecting what you're seeing, your experience, your subconscious, the stories inside you, and your feelings. So everybody's seeing different things, and people react to different things. It's the only thing you can take care of is from the skin, man. And when you understand that, and you start understanding energy, then your whole life changes, because People will never remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah. Oh my God. So true. So, okay. Yes, you're right.
So
It's,
let's talk about selling, entrepreneurship and selling.
yeah.
Stop selling. Go create a relationship, create a connection. The first thing, and I have clients all around the world. I work with CEOs, executives, and I'll let everybody know if they want to do a quick clarity session with me or something. I'll let you know how to get in touch with me. I've been doing this 15 years. One of my clients started in Southern California, is now one of the top, uh, literally a leader in social media in the world. And it's all because of the work we did on his inner game. And it's all the stories and beliefs he had inside him. So when I've studied this so deeply, we live in two dimensions, Phil. We live in a physical dimension, and everything in the physical dimension is a projection of our past. Because we go to our mind can only resource the past. There's no such thing as a future. That's just throwing your past out in front of you. That's really all your future is, right? So if you look at it that simply, that's why people say be present. Because your mind can't come into the present moment. It's not possible. Okay. And there's only two emotions: fear and love. That's it. Everything stems from those two. So love comes from our hearts. Love comes from the non-physical space. Love is that peace. No one will ever remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. It's an energetic equation, right?
Mhm.
That's love. Fear can only happen in the physical. It can only come from your physical life. It can't happen in the non-physical. So when you're in the non-physical, if you go meditate, if you go in and do visualizations to create your business, manifest what you want, you can create anything you desire. Anything, anything. The universe has to deliver it to you. You just need to give it the right vibration. You go into that space and you can get into that vibration easily. But when you come back into the physical space, it's about how slow and limitations and inertia and all kinds of things going on. But how you respond to those things energetically determines your level of success. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Because I, thinking as you're talking, am I going through, and this is what I love when I have guests like yourself, Bill, on it. I get to be more introspective because you guys are sharing so much valuable knowledge that I can learn from that, and I don't have to come up with questions because you're spilling your knowledge freely, and I can just be a student. And so I was just being very
And what's
introspective.
important about that, Phil? What's important about that is what I'm saying. One size doesn't fit all. This is a smorgasbord. You've had different experiences. You have a different purpose. You're in a different situation now. There's billions of people in the world. What I'm saying applies to everybody in the world. But what piece they'll use that'll change their life like that will be different.
Mhm. Um, so you're currently doing coaching, helping CEOs, entrepreneurs, high level individuals find the inner peace that you, or at least the being able
I'm
to
showing
find.
them, I'm showing them how to live in extreme happiness without sacrificing any success.
How did you move into that? Like, pardon me. You said you've been doing this for 15 years. Where was that switch that went from the typical entrepreneur thing into this coaching people to become happy and without this
It,
without loss of success?
it's been a long, gradual process. And the more I've trusted, and the as soon as I stopped resisting what I was getting and the path to follow and how clear and simple it is, you go through, who am I to know all this? Right?
Mhm.
This, one of those, the imposter kind of thing. But the fact of the matter is, because of the work I've done and because of my ability to detach from the physical, I have access to just all kinds of wisdom just by sitting. I can ask questions, just sit, and answers come. They just come, right? So as I've looked at it, I've just made it simpler and simpler, and really ultimately living your life purpose is the happiest you could be in life. That's it. There is no more. Mark Twain said the two most important days in our life are the day we were born and the day we find out why. And it's so true. But your why, and pay attention to this, Phil, your why, your purpose isn't what you do. That's where people have it backwards. Okay.
Interesting.
Your purpose is the energy you do everything with, every thought, word, and action. So if we look at you as a podcaster, okay, if I heard your story, I'm going to take a shot at your story of how you started podcasting. You found it kind of interesting and like, oh, that's like, hey, that could be cool. And check that. And you got in. And when you got in, you met the energy.
Yeah.
You didn't bring the energy to the podcast. The energy met you at the podcast.
Mhm.
Is that a good way to describe it?
100%. Yeah.
And
Specifically, when I decided to start this show, that the energy was in full effect there.
yeah. And so when you're doing these shows, you're ageless, you're timeless, you're just here, you're in the show. There is nothing else in the universe, is there, Phil? You're
No,
just
it's
in the
just me
show.
and my guest, and
Yeah.
it's
Like there it is. That is heaven on earth.
Mhm. I have said multiple times to my friends and family, um, all I want to do with my life is being able to do podcast interviews for the rest of my life, and I'll be the happiest guy in the world.
So what I show people how to do is to do exactly that in every area of their life. And guess what? The tools I use are so good. Okay. They're so good. I give a 100% money back success guarantee. What does that mean to you when I say a 100% money back success guarantee?
You trust your things 1,000% to work because they do work.
Yeah. So you better be ready to have it. And that's what I need to make sure whenever I talk to anybody, because it's going to work. And no one's in 15 years, no one's ever got their money back, ever. Because once you understand, like even some of the things I've just said about how you met your energy here at the podcast gives you a total perception of life, right?
Mhm.
Like, and that energy is available to you everywhere because we have chakras,
Mhm.
and we have seven specific energies that flow through the seven chakras from the root chakra all the way to the crown. And those energies I call them our divine power, okay? Because it's energetic. And it's divine compassion, divine creation, divine order, divine healing, divine authentic self expression, divine truth, and divine power. And every person has all seven of those, except we have them in different proportions. So no two people are the same energetically. That's the snowflake effect. That's what makes everybody different. It's their energy, it's where they come from. That's the thing. And when you get stuck living in the physical world in what I call survival, rather than thriving, you're surviving, okay? All you can do is compete, and it's just the whole thing energetically is ugly. But when you come at it from a thriving place, like with my clients, the first things I teach my clients, and the first things that have to happen with my clients is there has to be mutual appreciation expressed. If there isn't mutual appreciation, there's no client. It's that simple.
I love that.
Like,
That is
I'm building a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want your money. I want to show you how to change your life. Okay. I have no contracts. I have a 30-day cancellation, 100% money back guarantee. And my average client works with me. I need to check. I've got 3 right now that are past 5 years. And I just stopped working with one after 8 years. No contracts, nothing. That's the difference with energy. I don't do advertising. I don't need to. My energy attracts people in. That people connect with the energy and they go, okay, he's got something here. Well, what they're actually seeing, Phil, is themselves. What they're seeing is a reflection. They aren't seeing me. They're actually seeing themselves. That's what's so attractive, because the world's a mirror. The only thing you ever see in the world is you. So where do we want to go from here? I've been throwing a lot at you.
You've blown my brain. I'm sorry. My brain has just been blown by what you just said, because I'm just like going back on my life. Like, honestly, when you were sitting talking, you just mentioned like the world is a mirror. I was looking at you and I'm like, I feel there's a similar look. I felt like I don't want to make it sound weird, but like a kinship, because I looked at you and I'm like, wow, you kind of remind me of your look like me. And then you said the world is just a mirror, and I'm like, wow. And then I'm looking through like all the connections and all the conversations I've had with people, and I see all the things that I think is wrong, quote unquote, with me in those people. And that's why I feel connected to them, or I wanted to talk with them or be friends with them, because I felt a similarity.
Are you seeing what's wrong with you, or are you seeing the light shining, leading you into new areas in your life, because you're picking up on that reflection? It's a whole reflection. So whatever you see is you. Mm-hmm. And if it's negative and this, and then that's you. And that's easy to change. Stop seeing it.
That's like, I see, quote unquote, the things that I thought were wrong with me.
Right.
But like,
here's the deal. There's nothing wrong with anybody. Do you know what's wrong with the universe? There's one thing wrong with it.
What's wrong with
your perception of it? That's the only thing wrong with it. If you get in alignment with it, your life lights up. It becomes magic. When you start getting connected to energy, and when you start understanding that everything in the universe is a vibration. Everything in the universe is a vibration. That includes us, Earth, everything. Everything's a vibration. And when you focus on the vibration, you can then raise your vibration. When you raise your vibration, like attracts like. The universe is in a constant state of organic expansion. When you're in survival, you're fixed on a goal, you're fixed on selling a certain amount of stuff, and you manipulate, control, go through agony, pain, suffering to attempt to get it done, right? Because it's all in the physical and it's all about survival. But when you know, wait, the universe is abundant, it'll bring anything to me I desire. I can create anything I desire. It's true. And the suffering we bring on ourselves is amazing.
And to that point, with we can attract what we want, I've always wanted to have a free life, a life that I get to choose and control, but I never thought it was possible, because I was always told about the 9 to 5. And when I started learning more and more about entrepreneurship and the freedom that it provides to us, or that can provide
freedom all the time. Our greatest asset is free will and choice. Mm-hmm. And we don't use it. We get controlled by social policing. We get controlled by what other people are going to think, say about it, all that BS, instead of just going and really living to your fullest.
And I've been on a journey of self discovery, learning more about who I am, because I didn't like who I was in 2019. I've been talked about it on this podcast, but I had a burnout in 2020 at the beginning of COVID. At the beginning of
Hmm.
COVID, which I count as one of the blessings for me, because it gave me
Hmm.
time just to rest.
Yeah.
And I started doing therapy, started learning about myself. So that's why I created the show, Invest in Yourself, because if you don't invest in yourself, get to know who you are as a
Hmm.
person, you will never grow. You'll always be stunted. And I realized that when I with my burnout, that I wasn't investing in myself. I was just I was surviving. I was not trying to thrive. I was just trying to survive every day. And since I've done this podcast and gone all in on my podcasting, my life has been wonderful.
Because you change the energy.
Mhm. I focused on not going for a goal, but
Hmm.
or I had a
It,
goal and I knew the
it's the
universe.
journey.
It's
It's
I
it's the
focus on the journey and not the
it's the
goal instead.
journey.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's the journey. It's the journey. The the only thing we have is the present moment right now. Oh, it's already gone. Now we're in the next moment. Now we're in the next moment. Time is passing by. That's all we have is the present moment. Now get this. There's only two emotions, love and fear. Love is in our heart. Fear is always in your mind, the
Mhm.
ego, in the physical, always. Okay. Fear cannot come to the present moment. It's impossible. It's impossible to have fear in the present moment. In order to have fear, you have to go to the past. You have to go back to some story that doesn't support you. But when you're present, it's impossible to have fear.
It's very
And
true.
and fear knocked on the door and love answered, but no one was there because they can't coexist. Fear and love cannot coexist. And when you're living in the illusion in the physical and in the fear, it's all dominated by fear of loss and control and manipulation. When you come from a place of love and you go, okay, well, that's a game they're playing, but here's where I am, here's the choices I've made. All that's going to happen the way it happens. I'm going to be in the best energy I can and understand the stories that were inside me that used to cause me to go into reaction and stop that and just live this life that's beyond anything I could ever describe to anybody. It's a reaction free life. Like somebody could come up to me right now, just totally pissed and start screaming at me, you know, I'd say, well, first you, you've got to quiet down or you have to leave. It's, I don't have conversations that way. And that would be it. And if they quieted down, I'd have a conversation, but if not, they leave. Wouldn't bother me in the least. I used to be very angry. I would have been right in their face. Now I know what's going on. There's fear is driving this intense feeling. I mean, it's just the here's what I have learned. One, our lives are out of control. Period. Our lives are out of control. If you can understand and accept that and live in the present moment, you can live in freedom. But when you have goals and plans and expectations, they're never going to get met. Okay. Two, you have life lessons. Because you have life lessons, you have things to learn. If you have things to learn, listen, that means there's things you don't know. Let me repeat that. If you have life lessons around life and you have things to learn, it means things you don't know. That, my friends, is called a blind spot. And that is where all of your troubles come from. And you can hang out in blind spots your entire life without a clue. You know friends that have trouble with money. You know friends that have trouble with relationships. Everybody has different blind spots. This is a fact. It's a fact. So people are going around with blindfolds on, making decisions based on who they aren't. You know, look at what you've learned since you've done the podcasting about who you are and the difference in your choices. It's significantly different, isn't it?
Hmm. Night and day, night and day.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just because you're connected with you now. You're more connected with you.
I'm so enjoying this conversation, Bill. But we do have a time limit. I have to get to the last question. Unfortunately, I'm going to have you back on for sure.
I told you that when you're talking about about the questions at the beginning, I will admit I was chuckling inside. But anyway,
this one I do like, because I think it will help people become, in order to better themselves. What habit would you like to implement well, you already had what habit would you suggest people implement in order to better their lives?
well, there's two. The first one is stop being defensive. Anytime you're defensive, you're protecting a story inside of you. There are only two emotions, love and fear. Love needs no defense. With love, the more you give, the more you get. Fear is only about defensiveness. So watch that. If you're living in survival that way, then you're going to experience a lot of fear. The other one is I have a book called Clarity Has No Story. Your language is so important. Stop telling stories. Just speak with clarity. I have said nothing today with stories to convince anyone of anything. I have only told you about facts that I have observed and learned on my path. We live in stories, and these stories are inside us, and they've been handed down through generations and obligations, and they don't serve you anymore. Write a new story. You can write any story you want to, but you can't write it from a defensive position because it won't be a pretty story.
More wisdom. Bill, I want to thank you for being on the show. I'm going to jump off stage here for a moment. Please let my audience know where they can connect with you so that they can get more of your wisdom and and you can help more people.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Bill Heinrich with True Life Purpose Now. My website is truelifepurposenow.com, believe it or not. As I mentioned on the bottom in the picture here, you can see Clarity Has No Story is a book that you can download free. And you go to myfreebook.me, myfreebook.me, and you can download Clarity Has No Story. All of the work I do in my coaching, everything is in a book I wrote. It's on Amazon. It's called The 7 Levels of Truth. The 7 Levels of Truth on Amazon, a direct path to your life purpose. So if you really want to get more, or you can get, I think it's $18 on my website. You can order it from there and I'll send you a signed copy, or you can download a copy on my website. I think it's $8 to download a copy. And if anybody has any interest in my programs, you can go to speaktobill.com, and get on a 20-minute clarity session with me, and we can just have a discussion. That's it, Phil. I've so enjoyed being on the show.
I'm going to be listening back to this episode because I know there's at least 12 to 24 things that I missed the first time hearing you talk. So
there's some real gems there.
Oh, I know there are. If the gems that I caught were good, I can only imagine the ones that I missed because I was just too mind blown when I caught those gems. So I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me and my audience and just sharing so much value with us today.
Well, my purpose is to empower others so that you can go empower others. So thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. To my audience, make sure you check out the links down below to get in contact with Bill. And I want to thank you again for listening. And remember to always invest in yourself.